Ya Hazireen Majlis, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So friends, today inshallah is our 8th meeting already of the topic that we have been talking about, which is the pursuit and practice of Ihsan. And as we've been discussing over these past few days, the role models or the idea, the aspiration that is provided to us for living a life of Ihsan is from the lives of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The Quran provides us the blueprint. So we keep going back to the verses of the Quran because this is what provides us the guidance on how to live the life of Ihsan. And our job is to do the practice. Our job is to do what we can, even moment by moment in our lives, to inshallah instill moments of Ihsan in the beginning and then make them longer moments and inshallah live a life of Ihsan. So yesterday, over the last 2 days, we've been discussing a single verse of the Quran, which is verse 134 of Surah Al Imran, where Allah says, and those who spend in the way of Allah, in ease as well as in straightness, and those who restrain their anger and pardon men. And Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. Allah loves the doers of good. So again, the fact that this is what Allah is telling us, that people like that, people who have these characteristics, are His beloved. And that's what provides us the motivation. That is what provides us the motivation that this is actually, it may be hard, it's not easy. However, the reward of doing such actions, the reward of living such a life has a lot of merit, okay? And so we started by talking about how generosity of spirit is something that we need to cultivate within ourselves. And we start by becoming detached with worldly things. The more detached we become, the easier it is. And it's not only detached, because the word detached suggests that I reject it, that I am moving away from it. However, in Islam, we know that Islam is the middle path. So it is not wrong that we have, alhamdulillah, a comfortable life. It is not wrong that we own things. It is not wrong that we spend money on ourselves to make our lives comfortable. However, there is a big challenge in that. And the challenge is that we may get so attached to these things that, as other speakers have been mentioning in these days, that becomes an object of worship in itself, right? Because we know that the human being is programmed to worship something. And when we replace Allah in our worship, then something very much which is not going to create even satisfaction here, happiness here, is going to replace that, and that's not good for us either here or in the hereafter. So we started talking about generosity. We started talking about how it is equally important to give in all states, whether there are times of plenty for us or or we are going through hardship. And yesterday, in fact, I mentioned, so, before we move further, some of you asked, what are good places to donate? We talked about the floods that are happening in Karachi as we speak. And it's, unfortunately, it's not the end that we've seen yet, right? Water is still coming down. They're simply not prepared and they're in pretty bad shape. So Nuzar Appa has shared one individual who I know personally. She is collecting money and it will go, to the right place. People who want to donate here, because there's some people, who prefer to give in Canada. And the organization that I recommend, I have worked with them for many years. I sit on the board, so I am accountable for what they do with their money. That is IDRF, International Development and Relief Foundation, a highly respected charity, one of the top 25 charities of Canada. They have not announced their flood relief yet. They do lots of other work in Pakistan. But once they do, it will be all over social media. If you follow them or me or anyone else, you will get to know. So you can either give it now with just a note that, that's where you want it to go, or as soon as they announce their initiative. Because again, it takes a few days because they're very thorough in, who they pick as partners locally, how the money is accounted for. And because of all of those checks and balances, it takes a little bit longer than one person saying, okay, I'm going to go and give this pot of money, okay? So that's one thing. Also, many of you have been actually reaching out with messages that, jotting down notes after the majlis really helps. And again, this is learning theory. It will help. It will help you remember. It will help me remember. It will help us put it in action, right? So you also said that reviews are helpful. That when we do a short review, and obviously depending on the time, sometimes the reviews get quite long, so I have to be mindful of that. And so yesterday we started talking about the second part of that verse, which talks about the quality of restraining anger. And we talked about why Allah has created this faculty of anger in it. I always like to think of it as it's not a design flaw. It's not that, this is something negative that has been created in the human being. No, the human being has been created perfectly, what we like to call fit for purpose. Fit for purpose means that the purpose of our lives is to get closer to Him, is to actualize our potential. And we have actually within our creation been given all the tools that we need to do that. And the part of the faculty of anger has that purpose, because if we didn't survive, if we couldn't defend ourselves, then we can't really think about spirituality. We can't think about doing good to others if we are dead, right? So the quality of anger is very important. The problem with anger is not that we have this quality. The problem of anger is that we misuse it, that we use it in the wrong places at the wrong times. And today, inshallah, what we talk about, so the last part of the verse is Wal afina nas, and nas means they are forgiving, forbearing towards people. And so today, inshallah, this will be our topic. And we did say that, this verse is so important that sometimes, it's only mentioned in passing, or in it really, you could do an entire 10 days just on this one verse, right? So today, inshallah, we will talk about what it means to pardon men. I mean, the translations usually say the pardon or forgiving or be forbearing, but none of those are really good translations, okay? And how we understand forgiveness is obviously first through God's forgiveness. So when we talk about God's forgiveness, many different words are used. The first word that we all know is Ghafar. Ghafar means what? Somebody who covers sins, right? Somebody who covers them. And what ulama tell us is that this refers to the quantity of sins. So if we do a lot of sins, He's Ghaffar. No matter how many sins we do, He is willing and able to forgive them, okay? The other quality that He has is Ghafoor. Ghafoor is slightly different. It means that He forgives the quality of the sin, not just quantity, but even if the sin is really yucky, and we've got so many narrations in history. This is not our topic today, but really, throughout the Quran, there are amazing examples of people who were so fallen, who we would as human beings completely give up on. And when they would literally go away into the Sahara, they would go into the desert, and they would be disgusted with themselves. The society would be disgusted with them. And verses of the Quran would tell the Prophet, bring that up back. Bring him back, because I have forgiven him, right? And this is the quality of forgiveness that Allah has. And then He has also the word which we all know, Al-Af, right? Al-Af is a beautiful name of God. It also means forgiveness, but it's a different kind of forgiveness. So we know that the system of cause and effect is such that if we do something, we will have that effect, right? And we talked, I'm not sure if we talked about it, but anyway, if we think enough negative thoughts, the structure of our brain actually changes. So we make inroads into our brain by how we think, right? That's an effect of our thinking. If we smoke, our lungs will be black. That's an effect of, I don't want to call it a sin, but you know what I'm talking about, right? If we do something which is harmful to us, even if we give up smoking, our body will testify to the fact that we were once smokers. How? When they look inside our lungs, right? So every sin that we do, we may not recognize what the effect is, because again, in this world, we are living in a world of hijabs, right? We're living in a world of veils. We don't see the reality of things. However, on the day of judgment, one of the qualities of that day is that all the veils will be stripped and we will see the action for what it was, okay? So af means actually that so you did something, let's take the example of smoking. Please, I'm not saying smoking is a sin, okay? That's not the point. It's just what is coming to mind right now in terms of cause and effect, okay? So imagine that I have been a smoker And the effect of it is that my lungs are black. Af means that when they open my lungs, they're actually clean. So I have given up smoking, but I don't have any residual effects of that. Okay, this is an extremely important quality of God, because so many times what happens is we mess up our lives big time, don't we? We really do. And one of the things that has been a lot of talk in the community because of the nighttime lectures, and inshallah we talk some of it tomorrow, but is this idea of parenting. You know, so many parents have been reaching out that, you know what, I didn't know any better. So I did something and now are my children messed up? You know, I told them off, I said things to them that I shouldn't have. And this is when we need the quality of al-af. So if we have repented, obviously that's the first step, right? We don't keep doing what we've been doing and then ask for repentance, right? So we do what we can. We repent, we make amends, we ask for forgiveness from God, from whoever has been harmed, and then we ask al-af. Al-af means erase the signs of my sin. You know, once long ago, I either read or heard this beautiful example that when God does al-af, when he erases the effects of our sin, what he's doing is he takes it, you know, he takes the impact, he takes the sin into the deep, dark ocean, puts it right at the bottom of the ocean and puts up a big sign, no fishing. So it's gone. The signs of it are erased. It's done. Okay. Why are we spending so much time on this? Because when we're talking about, this is the same quality that we are being asked to apply in terms of our relationships with human beings. So what it means, and of course we'll discuss it in detail, but right in the beginning, what it means is that forgiveness in this sense means that we don't hold that person hostage to what they did. That's in essence what it means, okay? Now, of course, forgiveness is a huge topic and we're going to try and at least, so what's the motivation? The thing with forgiveness that it's a journey. You know, sometimes it's a switch, right? You decide, you know what, I've spent enough of my life being miserable, resentful, it's really not working out for me. Flip the switch, done, I'm moving on. Okay, that's forgiveness. However, most of the time it's not like that. Most of the time it is a journey, which means it takes time. But it starts with the intention and the awareness, the willingness to move forward, right? That's the most important thing. So many times when we are working with people who are stuck, you know, who are stuck in this mess, like it's not a good place to be. You know, having grudges within you, we all know that, right? It's not a good place to be. So what is the biggest thing that's holding them back is this idea of the willingness to forgive. Because we don't want to, because somehow we think if we forgive somebody else, we are saying that what they did was okay. Isn't it? That's in essence what it is. So let's discuss what forgiveness is and isn't. So again, our goal here, if nothing else, if the only thing that rests or is inspiring to us is, you know what, maybe I can do this, and maybe it's a good idea too. Really, if we've achieved that much in the next half an hour, that would be like a huge achievement, okay? So, there are two kinds of forgiveness. One is, and these are technical words, but we will try to, and you know, all of these lectures are recorded. You know, please, again, if you have questions, even after, you know, we're no longer meeting every day, if you have questions, I'm always happy to like do a short video or audio or whatever, right, to answer those. First is what we call situational forgiveness. Situational forgiveness means what? You did something to me. And again, the example that I'm going to be using throughout, again, is because it has to be something big, it has to be something meaningful, and it has to be something common, okay? So let's take divorce, okay? People get divorced and, you know, one of the very important work after divorce in order to move on and build happy relationships in the future is to practice forgiveness. And again, we will talk about what that means, but that's a situational thing. Situation means that I was in a bad relationship, whether it was abusive or not, but it didn't work out for me and I've moved on. Okay. So I need to forgive in order to heal. The second thing is what we call dispositional forgiveness. Dispositional forgiveness means, in Urdu we have this word, dar guzar kar dena. Do you know what that means? Like overlooking, not being so mired in little nitty gritty things. And yesterday we talked about how, if in your close relationships you are upset with one or two people, that's very understandable because those people are very dear to us. And when they do something, it hurts deeply, right? So and that's why the people who have it's the price of love, basically. When you love someone, they have the power to hurt you, right? And if you protect against that your whole life, you're not really loving. The idea, the courage to love means that you are opening yourself up to somebody else's actions, right? Dispositional forgiveness means that you really let go little things. You're not nitpicking every single day. You're a new thing that you're upset about, right? Because the thing with that is it's not about the other person. If you are mad at multiple people in your life, like what we said yesterday, the common denominator is yourself. So if I'm mad, my husband, my children, my in-laws, my friends, the community members, who is the common denominator? It's me, right? So at least have to recognize that I am not going healing. Moving forward does not mean I'm going to focus on what this one did this to me, this one did this to me, this one did this to me. My healing is going to come from what I can relate differently. And I'm not saying ignore your wounds. This is not what I'm talking about, right? In fact, in order to really heal, we need to honor the wound. We really do. We need to acknowledge that this is painful. If we don't acknowledge that I'm hurt, I'm painful, then where do I go? I go to anger. Right? I go to anger. Why? Because then I go to blame. You are doing this to me. When I let go of the blame, I turn inwards and I'm like, ouch, that really hurts. It's not about anyone else. It's just acknowledging, what? For whatever reason, this was painful for me. Now, why is that so empowering? Because I can do something for myself, right? I can heal it. I can practice self-compassion. I can practice self-care. All of the things we've been talking about have been building up. Okay? If everyone else is always hurting me, then I'm always a victim in my life. I can't really move forward until everyone else changes. And what is the likelihood of that happening? Okay. So, we are told that a moment is like an ocean. How? Take a small cup, right? You put a little pebble in it, what's going to happen? It's going to create a big wave, right? It's going to actually really distress the thing. You put it in a bucket, it's going to create a ripple for a little while, but then it will settle down. You throw a stone in the ocean, is anything going to happen? No. So when we say a moment is like an ocean, it means our capacity, our zarfiyat, that's a technical term for it, is so vast that these things don't upset me. And when I'm so connected to God, when I remind myself that, anytime we say, that one insulted me, no one can really insult me because izzat belongs to God. He gives it to whoever. If you are insulting me, who are you insulting? If you misbehave, if you tell me off in public, if you say something, you go and talk behind my back, have you impacted me in any way? You actually haven't, right? Because my izzat does not come from you. It comes from God. And if we just remind ourselves this, then our capacity to tolerate distress becomes much bigger. And that's what it's about, right? And so now we keep moving back between the big picture, which is now what we're talking about, the big picture, and then the practices, right? So the silence, the meditation, the sitting on the musalla, the du'as, all of these are the practices which will help us expand the zarfiyat. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and the beautiful verse in the Quran where Allah is telling the Prophet, let not their speech grieve you. Surely Allah's might is holy. Again, innal izzata lillahi jameen. So let not what they say upset you. You know, they're doing it according to their personality, their character. You know, it's not about you. And so many times, why do we hold things in? Because we take it personally, isn't it? That it's about me. It's really not about me. So now let's talk about what is, you know, what are some of the inspirations that we have from the Quran. First of all, number one, the most important thing, we need to remind ourselves that forgiving others is access to His mercy. Forgiving others is access to His mercy. So this is from Surah Nur, and those of us who are in the Quran class, we've just done these verses, so they should be familiar. And let not those of you who possess grace and abundance swear against giving to the near of kin and poor and those who have fled in Allah's way, and they should pardon and turn away. Pardon means, again, yafu means, again, comes from af, same word. But yasfahu. Yasfahu means just ignore it. Ignore it, not in a mean way, but ignore it means let it slide. Just let it slide. And do you not love that Allah should forgive you? And Allah is Ghafur Rahim. So again, what happens is we want, and somebody explained this so beautifully. They said, okay, just think of this. Is forgiveness good or bad? Good. So do you ask Allah for forgiveness? Right. So if it's good, that's why you ask Him, right? But if it's not good, why are you not practicing it? If it's good, why are you not practicing it? If forgiveness is bad, like you don't want to forgive other people, then why are you asking God for it? Right? It was such a simple, but like literally even a child can understand that, right? That if we are expecting some kind of letting go from God, the problem happens though is that we're not in touch with our own shortcomings. When we are dealing with ourselves, we really focus on our good intention, really. So imagine that I got very late today, okay? And so when I show up here, what am I going to think? You know, what could I do? There was traffic. I meant to be on time. There was so much, you know, people were calling me, people were messaging me. I couldn't focus. My computer broke down. The printer wasn't working, blah, blah, blah. So what am I doing? I'm not focusing on the fact that I'm late. My behavior, I'm focusing on the intention behind it. Now imagine that I have a majlis at my house and I'm calling the Zakira. And the Zakira is very late. She doesn't show up. Am I going to give her the benefit of the doubt? I am going to focus on, I don't care what your intention was. Behavior is that you were late. End of story. Do we ever do that? No? Wow, mashallah, you should teach us that. So most of us, right, most of us, we always look at ourselves with the best of intentions when we are looking at, that's why we can't forget. If we were to give, you know, so a simple principle in life which will make us all very happy. Assume that everyone has at least as good intentions as we do. Assume that everyone else has at least as good intentions as we do. I promise you, your life will change. I know my life did. When I adopted this principle, that you know what, I don't care. I'm just going to assume what would I have done in the situation? Would I have been mean to someone necessarily? No. I probably didn't rage. You know, I wouldn't have realized that I had said something in that way. I'm going to assume she didn't try it. Can you imagine how free? So what, you know, what psychologists tell us and what ulama also tell us is that forgiveness is an inner freedom. It's about ourselves. It's about our own well-being. It's not about letting the other person off the hook, okay? So again, God, what does He do? He forgives us no matter how many times, right? It's actually embarrassing. that you keep you keep asking forgiveness, you keep doing the same thing, you keep saying you'll do better, you keep going back, right? And yet when our spouse or our children ask forgiveness for us for the same thing 3 times, what do we say? How many times am I going to forgive you? You just can't get it right. Okay, imagine ourselves, right? How many times do we ask God forgiveness for the same thing? Not only that, he transforms bad deeds into good. So imagine that a child came to us and said sorry. Now we have a hard enough time, especially with teenagers, really hard to forgive them. So when, like, daughter came, she said, what, mama, I am whatever, it's that time of the month, I'm a bit cranky, I'm sorry. Now, so it happens every month. Every month, she's upset, and every month she says sorry. Okay. So instead of saying, what, you really should get on with it, we say, no, what, beta, I understand. Here, let's go out, have a good time, I'll buy you a gift. This is what Allah does with us. He says, you say sorry to me, I'll take the evil that you've done and I'll convert it into good deeds. Like, how amazing, how amazing is this creator, right? And then again, so this idea of being soft towards each other, right? Imam Ali puts it so beautifully. Now everyone knows this part of the letter to Malik Ashtar that Imam Ali wrote in. That is in part of Nahj al-Balagha, right? So we all know that idea that he is your friend, he is your brother in faith or your equal in humanity, right? We all know that part. So what he says before that is that, let go. Don't be so nitpicky with people. Slips catch them unaware. Deficiencies overcome them. Evil deeds are committed by them intentionally or by mistake. So grant them the same degree of pardon and forgiveness that you hope Allah will grant you. For you are above them, and who appointed you is above you, and Allah is above him who gave you this position. Right? So, and the beginning part of it says, fill your heart to the brim, like make your heart overflowing with mercy, kindness, and affection towards them. Right? So what the point of this is that if we are not in touch with our own shortcomings, that's why we are told again and again in hadith, again and again in narrations, that a mu'min is obsessed with his own shortcomings, obsessed. Not in a like, I am so worthless kind of way, but in a realistic way that, what? These are places where I struggle. I'm still struggling. Like if I tell you, how old am I? Why can't I still make it on time to places? It's ridiculous, right? So if I recognize that, how many years, decades have been working on this, it's still not over it, I still struggle with it. This is how God is, so forgiving. Why can't I show the same kind of grace to others? So very important to be in touch with our own shortcomings. So now let's make it a little bit practical. How much time do we have? Okay, so just please give me a 5-minute one, okay? So now remember yesterday I told you to think of somebody who's upsetting you, okay? And we also talked about how to think of unenforceable rules. By the way, did anyone do that? Did anyone discover some unenforceable rules that you have in your life? Okay, anyway, we'll talk more about that. Sometimes I think, what's the point? I go, I say, I come back, nothing changes in me, or in others, right? But anyway, inshallah. So think about it, forming a grudge. So I really want us to think about a grudge we have right now. And if anyone here doesn't have a grudge, alhamdulillah. Right? But most of us have something that we're upset at someone, right? Big or small. Now, I'm going to tell you how it happened, and you think in your mind whether or not what I'm telling you makes sense. Okay? Okay. So, before you had the grudge, think of that relationship, and something happened. That person did something that you didn't like. And then what happened was that you interpreted it in your mind that this was something negative, that it was personal, that they did it to you in particular. It wasn't that, it was just impersonal, something happened, they were having a bad day. They picked you to do that too. And then because it's me, it's my ego, right? Now my ego is very hurt. And remember, again, we go back to brain science. When my ego is hurt, what happens is I get into attack or defense, right? So now that happened, it's gone. Because remember, anger is a quick emotion. It comes and it goes. However, now my thinking has gotten involved. So I go to the mosque, right? Someone says something to me, like the volunteers, inshallah, soon come, and I'm sitting with my chatty group of friends, which I usually am, and they come and they say, shh, okay, and I'm like, how dare they? Don't they know who I am? Right? So I get very offended. Now, okay, I get upset. It's done, right? It's over. That thing is done. No longer present right now. I come home, my thoughts are going round and round and round. How dare she? How dare she? How dare she? Doesn't she know? Doesn't she know I also volunteer? Doesn't she know that I was only telling them something good? Right? Whatever it is. So I am playing this record again and again and again in my head. And now what's going to happen is that I am the victim in this story. And something outside of me has done something bad to me. Then, of course, because I'm feeling bad, who am I blaming? I'm blaming her for causing this feeling of badness in me. And now I have created this lovely story in my head about what a horrible volunteer she is and what a sweet, innocent person I am. Helpless, victim in this story. Does any of this sound familiar? Yes, no? Maybe. Okay, good. So now that grievance that you have, is it something kind of similar, right? Something happened, you made it mean something, you took it personally, okay? Now what happens is, now again, coming back, remember we said yesterday that all of us have some unenforceable rules in our rule book, in our invisible rule book. So in my rule book, my rule book says that people who are somebody, quote unquote, now look at the ego, huh? My God. People who are somebody in the mosque should be treated better. That's my rule book. I didn't give it to her, right? This is my rule book. And so this is in my rule book. Now, if she does this to me, can I help it? Do I have any influence or control over? I cannot. So I've given a mental ticket, right? I've given a ticket. You did this wrong, minus 50 points. Okay. Now I'm going to be living with that mental ticket. She, bichari, has no idea, was doing her job, moved on, has gone to sleep, has no clue that somebody is mad at her. Okay. This is how we live. So another way to understand it is that we have pain in our lives. Pain could be physical pain, it could be mental pain, it could be pain that somebody said something to us which we got hurt. That is the first dart. That's the pain. Then what happens to it is that we start making up stories about the pain. So let's take a physical example. So imagine that I have pain in my knee. Okay. Now I have pain in my knee and it's not personal. Everyone has pain in their knee. However, the stories that I make up about this pain is, why me? Why only me? Why are my joints so bad? Why does Allah only give me physical pain, right? I eat healthy, I try, why me? Okay. Now, can you see how I've taken this pain and made it into suffering? The pain will, so if I take a Tylenol, the pain might go away, right? Or not. But the suffering that I have created in my mind because of this pain is going to last for a long time. And that's what we do, right? So we call it the first dart, which is pain. And pain, by the way, if you're a live human being, you will have pain. If you have no pain, you're not alive, really. So the cost of being alive on this planet, and I'm talking physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, okay? You will have pain. There will be people who hurt us. There will be things that won't go right. There will be things that happen, okay? The problem is not that we have pain, the problem is that we make suffering out of it by playing it round and round and round in our mind. And while we are doing that, what are we not doing? Are we connected to God? No, it's a huge barrier. It's a huge barrier to spirituality. Okay. So, and the thing with anger, right? So we said that anger comes and goes. It's a quick emotion. However, when the mind gets involved, it becomes into this smoldering resentment. Resentment and anger is two very different things. So yesterday we said that anger is like, remember setting yourself up on fire? That kind of fire goes out quite quickly. Resentment is like hot burning coals. And it's like taking these coals and throwing it at other people, hoping that they get burnt. You know, it's like drinking poison, slow acting poison, and imagining that somebody else is going to die as a result of my drinking poison, right? Now, let's take a very physical example. So there was this study that they did. It was on heart patients. Okay, so they put them in machines and they gave them radioactive material, right? You know what that is, like nuclear medicine. So they gave them this thing to drink or whatever. They put them in fMRI machines to test their hearts. And all of these people had some big resentment in their lives. They had some big thing that they had not let go of, some trauma, some unforgiveness. Okay. So they did that, and the people, they showed that the heart, the ones who didn't have any of this, their heart was like glowing, and you know, you could see the whole thing. The ones who had this resentment, their heart had black spots. Means the medicine was not going in there. Means what? That the blood flow, it wasn't an open heart, right? Like there was blockages in there. Then they took the same group, and it was done on men. They took the same group of men, and what they did was they did forgiveness interventions with them. Now, forgiveness intervention, it's a long thing, but basically 10 weeks. 10 weeks, they were told to practice forgiveness. And after 10 weeks, when they practiced forgiveness, they put them back in those machines without anything else. So they were not exercising more, they were not eating healthy, they were not on medication. It was like, you know, these were the conditions of the experiment. And what they found was that all of them had unblocked their hearts. They had unblocked their hearts by letting go of the resentment. So let's not make any mistakes. What we hold on to is costing us a lot. It's costing us physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You know, it's really costing us spiritually, okay? So one of the biggest barriers to forgiveness is that we don't recognize this cost, right? We don't recognize it. And once we recognize it, we are much more willing to move forward. So let's just, you know, tell us what we mean by forgiveness. Like, I know I've come a long way to tell you the definition of forgiveness, but this was all the background. So what ulama of akhlaq tell us, and what psychology tells us, that forgiveness does not mean you condone someone's behavior. It's not about them. Forgiveness is not about them. It's a gift that you give yourself, okay? So what forgiveness means, it's a change in feelings and attitudes regarding what happened. So a bad thing happened to you, you have changed your attitude, you have changed your emotions, you have changed your feelings about what happened to you. You have let go of negative emotions such as taking revenge. You've stopped having those conversations in your head where you tell that person exactly what they did to you, okay? You don't want them to suffer anymore. Because let's face it, when we're holding a grudge, we really want that person to suffer, right? We don't want that person to suffer anymore. And we have an increased ability to wish the other person well. So we have this attitude of compassion, of letting go. They can't trigger us in the same way that they were triggering us, right? So it doesn't mean you're condoning it. It doesn't mean, so if you've been in an abusive relationship, if somebody has defrauded you, if they've eaten up your money, they've taken your house, whatever, those are big things, right? Those are not something that you can condone. You can't say what they did was okay. But instead of it becoming a living misery in your present, it becomes a part of your past. So it's not forgetting. You know, this really holds us back, because we think Forgiving means forgetting. No, it does not. If you've been divorced, for example, and it was a bad relationship, you can't forget it. It was a part of your history, especially if you have children, right? You can't forget it, but you change your relationship to what happened. So instead of being a victim, you are now the hero of your story. You are more spiritually expansive, you are connected to God. They don't have that same power over you that they did. You know, when you first get divorced, when people are first divorced, they are like very triggered with each other. You know, I've had people who won't sit, like I have one sofa, because if it's couples counseling, I imagine that people will sit on the same sofa, right? No, they don't want to sit in the same space because they're so triggered by each other, right? But when you've done the work of forgiveness, you don't mind being in the same space. And as parents, by the way, coming back to divorce, you are going to be parents. So you need to do that work of forgiveness. Because no matter how long you live, you will be co-parents to the children that you have, right? So you either do that work before or after marriage. Like it's one of those things. So let's stop here, and tomorrow, inshallah, we will conclude our series.